Hello everyone. Today we'll be making a video about force reset triggers, basically explaining what they are and correcting some misinformation. This video will go over definitions of force reset triggers, examples of force reset triggers themselves, explaining federal definitions of machine guns, and talking about rare breed and the settlement, and then going over overall opinions. All right, so let's get to it. So we're going to switch over to this right here. Okay. This is my presentation. FRT, Force Reset Trigger, Explained and Correcting Misinformation by Uncle Joe. All right. What is a force reset trigger? A force reset trigger is a device that allows a person to fire a semi-automatic firearm at an increased rate. The force reset trigger works by mechanically resetting the trigger's position after a shot is fired. This allows for an increased rate of fire. However, the shooter must still manually pull the trigger each time it resets for any subsequent shot to be fired. Examples of FRTs include rare breed FRT or cassette style FRT, WOT FRT, cassette style FRT, super safety, Arizona regulator FRT, AK FRT, not AK super safety. The reason for this is because the AK super safety was deemed to be a machine gun conversion device by ATF in an official memorandum. Basically, every once in a while, ATF will send out to FFLs a list of known or new machine gun conversion devices, and the AK Super Safety was added due to the fact that, at least from what I was told and what online internet people say, is because the AK Super Safety 3D print files also included the same person who made that also made the AK drop-in auto sear, and included that in the download files. Again, I could be wrong on this. Feel free to correct me down in the comments below. The Kabuto turd, I believe that's how you say it, or Kabuto. It's a new force reset device thing that drops over your fire control group unit, and you could put a 3-position selector in it, and you can remove it out of the lower. It's just a drop in and drop out, basically the same as an Arizona regular FRT, except you don't put it in the upper, you just put it in the lower, and allows for 3 positions. And when you take it out, you don't get hammer follow, unlike an Arizona regulator 3-position FRT. It's just a regular 3-position safety. It doesn't mess with the disconnector at all. Atrius Super Selector, basically lever style super safety, and the arc selector, basically the same as the previous one, except a bit more robust. And there are many more, such as there's one for VZ61, I believe. There's one for Chris Vector, Strybog, MP5, but some of these previous force reset devices can be adapted to multiple different platforms. Like there are AK super safeties, or there are, which, you know, depending on whether or not you want to take that gamble or not is up to you. There's MP5 super safeties, or MP5 Atrius or arc selector lowers you can get. You can get Strybogs with super safeties. You can install them. There's a ton of different firearms you can transfer this technology to. All right. How is this not a machine gun? For the purposes of the National Firearms Act, the term machine gun means any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manually reloading by a single function of the trigger. The frame or receiver of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely and exclusively, or a combination of parts designed and intended for using in converting a weapon into a machine gun, or any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if such parts are in the possession under a single person. The 4th bulletin right here is what the ATF tried to stick the FRT on, but they failed. The force reset trigger works by mechanically resetting the trigger's position after a shot is fired. This allows for an increased rate of fire. However, the shooter must still manually pull the trigger each time it resets for any subsequent shot to be fired. Thus, one shot per function of the trigger, meaning it's semi-automatic only and not fully automatic. What about the ATF's opinion? In the United States, under the Biden administration, the ATF released an open letter in March 2022 that found that some force reset triggers should be regulated as machine guns under the National Firearms Act. This was a follow-up to a July 2021 cease and desist letter sent to the manufacturer Rare Breed Triggers, which sued but had its case dismissed without prejudice. On July 24th, 2024, District Judge Reed O'Connor from the Wichita Falls District of the United States District Court of for the Northern District of Texas issued a vacatur under the Administrative Procedures Act for the ATF's determination that some force reset triggers are machine guns, finding that the determination was arbitrary and capricious. ATF began returning seized devices while appealing the case to the Fifth Circuit, which cited Cargill v. Garland, which was the case that the Supreme Court took up for the bump stock ban, and the Supreme Court found in the 63 ruling that the bump stock ban was, the ATF went outside of its authority in determining that that is a machine gun because it is not under federal law. Now here we're going to be talking about the rare breed settlement. There's going to be a lot of dense details here. There's going to be a lot of information thrown at you at once, but don't worry, we will summarize it after this is done. There will be a rare breed settlement summary that you need to know. In May of 2025, the Trump administration settled the lawsuit with Rare Breed, with both parties agreeing to the following. 1 and 2, basically to settle a couple lawsuits, and both parties will bear their own court costs. Number 3, the government agrees to the extent practicable to return FRTs as defined in paragraph 11 below, that it has seized or taken as a result of a voluntary surrender. Such returns must be requested by individual owners by September 30th of 2025, consistent with the instructions provided on ATF's public website. With respect to FRTs seized or surrendered in connection with the litigation described in Exhibit B, the return of the FRTs shall be in full settlement and satisfaction of all claims to the FRTs and all claims and causes of action that could result from the FRT seizure and inclusion in the litigation described in Exhibit B. This paragraph does not apply to FRTs that are evidence in criminal investigations or prosecutions or are subject to forfeiture pursuant to 27 CFR 478.152. Basically, what that means is that any and all voluntarily seized FRTs or voluntary surrender FRTs, they must be returned to individuals. Number 4, the United States agrees to the prompt return of all bonds posted related to the litigations described in Exhibit B. Finance stuff related to the named plaintiffs. Doesn't matter to us. Rare breed settlement continue. 5 and 6. Basically saying that the plaintiffs waive the right to claim that the government did no wrong and no more suing over this issue or individuals and the government. Could be wrong, not an expert on legal speak. I will leave a couple of links for sources in the description below. One of these sources will take you to the full settlement. It's 14 pages long. It's not that long of a read, and you could read it for yourself and determine whether or not this information is correct. As always, do your own research. Number 7, Rare Breed Triggers, Rare Breed Firearms, Mr. DeMonico, and Mr. Maxwell agree that they will not develop or design FRTs for use in any handgun. Handguns is defined, for the purposes of this agreement, as a firearm whose magazine loads into the trigger hand grip. So such examples of these guns would be a Glock, Smith & Wesson M&P, TP9, or MP7. Those style of firearms, or TP7 in that case, a real MP7 would be a machine gun. And there's a number of different ones that are out there, many different ones. Something that would fall outside of this definition and would not be considered a handgun as part of the settlement is something like an AR pistol, an AK pistol, a Tech 9, or VZ61 or VZ, yeah, I believe it's a VZ61, a Vector, a P90, stuff like that. That's not considered a handgun, right? Although P90 would be a rifle because it has a stock. Anyways, continuing on. Number 8, rare breed triggers, rare breed firearms. Mr. DeMonico and Mr. Maxwell will not market, advertise, or encourage individuals to put FRT triggers on any handgun. Number 9, rare breed triggers, rare breed firearms. Mr. DeMonico and Mr. Maxwell agree to take all reasonable efforts to engage in patent enforcement, seeking prohibitory injunctions against any person or entity that manufactures, sells, or distributes any FRT during the life of U.S. patent number 10,514,223 patent, or otherwise known as the 223 patent. Provided rare breed triggers, Mr. DeMonico and Mr. Maxwell have a good faith argument that the device is within the scope of the patent. The United States will not bear litigation costs of any patent enforcement actions. This is the part of the rare breed settlement that's the most confusing and weird part of the settlement, where basically the government gives rare breed firearms, rare breed triggers to Mr. DeMonico, Mr. Maxwell, basically to engage in patent enforcement and seeking prohibitory injunctions, which is really weird. It's not really common in these settlements. When I talk to a couple of people that I know that know little legal speak, and as well as a bunch of YouTube videos that I watched. But anyways, we're not here to talk about this. This is a whole separate issue. Right now, we're just talking about individual ownership of FRTs and the legality surrounding them. This has no bearing on that. Number 10, ATF agrees to process rare breed firearms federal firearms license and will not deny the license based on the interpretation of FRTs being machine guns or the possession, sale, transfer, transport, or manufacturing of force reset triggers. It basically says that rare breed firearms can have its federal firearms license back. Number 11. This is the most important one. So if there's any to pay attention to, this is the one you pay attention to outside of the handgun one. Number 11. The United States agrees not to enforce 18 USC 922-0 and the requirements of the National Firearms Act, Gun Control Act of 1968, as amended by the Hughes Amendment to the 1986 Firearm Owners Protection Act, or any similar statute or agency interpretation of 26 USC 5845B, under which an FRT is contended to be a machine gun or otherwise unlawful against any person or organization for possessing or transferring FRTs under the following 2 conditions. This is the United States government saying it agrees not to enforce this statute, the machine gun ban or machine gun law, against FRTs under these 2 conditions. This is not just applying to rare breed firearms, it applies to FRTs in general. A, the FRTs have the mode of operation described in the district court's opinion in NAGR v. Garland as follows. Number 1, the FRT is forcibly reset to its forward reset state after each round is fired. Number 2, the FRT is locked mechanically in its reset state, preventing the trigger from moving until the firearm is safe to fire. Number 3, the hammer must be released from its sear surface for every round fired. Number 4, the trigger in an FRT-equipped firearm must reset after every round is fired. And number 5, preventing the reset will cause a weapon to malfunction. And then B, the FRTs are not designed for use in and used in handguns as defined above. If your force reset trigger that you have falls under these criteria, it is perfectly legal to own, so long as your state or municipality does not ban these items. This is purely talking about federal government, not local government. There was a man in DC, and this is the reason why I'm making this video, who was recently caught at a gun range. He rented a gun and decided to take it apart at the firing range and tried to install a force reset trigger device in the gun. Obviously, the gun range did not like this, and one of the employees of the gun range reported him to police, which resulted in a raid in his home, in which they found multiple 3D printed force reset devices, although it's not confirmed what devices they are. That has not been released yet. However, he was charged under the District of Columbia for violating the machine gun prohibition that that the District of Columbia has. Now, he was not charged by the federal government. He was charged by the local government there, basically the state government or the local municipality. I don't know how DC law works, but basically, let's just say he was in New York. He'd be charged by the New York District Attorney's Office, or whatever District Attorney's Office for that area would be, right? Again, I'm not sure how DC works in terms of that, but I know that ATF is not pursuing charges in this case. They are assisting, basically identifying which what force reset trigger devices these are, and basically tracing firearms and making sure, etc. They're just assisting the local government. But you're probably going to see over the next few years a couple of cases that are similar to this. Those are local governments, not the federal government. As of October 2025, FRTs federally, the federal government recognizes them as not machine gun conversion devices or machine guns in and of themselves, as long as they fall within these criteria. Rare breed settlement final. 12 to 23 other legal stuff, including if the agreement is violated, they'll go back to the same district to litigate it out. I'll have a link in the description below to the entire agreement if you want to read it for yourself. So, summary of rare breed settlement agreement. Number 1, the government agrees to the extent practicable to return FRTs as defined in paragraph 11. This time has already passed, so this doesn't really matter, but I figured it was an important point to point out. This shows where the government stands, and it helps in the future in case this case ever gets litigated by the government again, to show that the government actually was forced to return these items to individuals. Number 2, the government agrees not to call FRTs, as defined in paragraph 11, machine guns, and enforce it under the NFA and the GCA. Again, as defined in paragraph 11. And number 3, Rare Breed agrees not to make an FRT for a handgun. Handgun is defined for the purposes of this agreement as a firearm whose magazine loads in the trigger hand grip. I have seen many people say that this applies to AR or AK pistols. This is not the case. That is untrue, and you can still put those devices in there. In fact, Lawrence DeMonico went on, in an interview, he wanted to make sure that that was not the case. Granted, he is also the one that offered handguns as a substitute as part of the settlement, so it is kind of his fault. It is his fault that handguns are also banned for having FRTs in them, or is having, for the purposes of this agreement, they can't make one, right? It's restricting Rare Breed's ability to put those in handguns. Not strictly prohibiting the legality of handgun FRTs, but it's very dicey territory, to say the least. All right, so what does this actually mean? It means the government agrees that to call FRTs, as defined in paragraph 11, let me rephrase. It means the government agrees not to call FRTs, as defined in paragraph 11, machine guns, and enforce it under the NFA and GCA. This does not just apply to Rare Breed products, as it applies to all FRTs as defined in the settlement. People saying that this only applies to Rare Breed products are incorrect. Handgun FRTs aren't strictly illegal, but dicey. The federal government does not like these items. Basically, they're trying to prevent the next Glock switch, except this Glock switch, if there's ever a new one to come out, that is a force reset switch, it would be much more legally complicated to take down, and more people would get their hands on it, and the more dangerous it would be, according to them. Not saying that I necessarily agree with the government's reasoning there, but that's probably the government's reasoning. Number 3, FRTs that don't fall into the court's definition of FRTs aren't FRTs, they're machine guns. That's basically what the government is saying here. If it falls within this criteria, it is fine. It is perfectly okay to have and possess. And the government will not go after individuals or plaintiffs for owning these items. However, if it falls outside of this definition, then they are going to consider those to be machine guns or machine gun conversion devices. And the best way to be able to handle that, you can either contact a lawyer, or my personal opinion is either shutting up about it, not telling other people, or destroying it. Probably destroying it might be the best option for you, so that way you don't have it. And then number 4, but you do you, whatever. Number 4, if the parties violate the agreement, whether that be the government or the plaintiffs, it's way more likely to be the government, right? It gets litigated in pretty much the most pro-gun federal district court in America. I say pretty much because there are other pro-gun courts in the United States. However, I do not have a lot of knowledge on this, but what I have been told, it is pretty much, if you're going to litigate this case, this is pretty much the best district court to do it in, and that's not going to change anytime soon. All right, so stuff I think is dicey. So we're moving on from the rare breed stuff. That settles that, right? We know what is allowed and not allowed. It's been clearly defined. Now, what are some stuff that I think is dicey or risky? Again, none of what I'm about to say, except for the last one, right? The last one clearly is. None of what I'm saying has any real meat to it. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. Actually, some of it does have real meat to it. That's why, in my personal opinion, this is my risk management when I'm looking at force reset trigger devices and what I recommend or not recommend for people. So handgun FRTs in general are risky, not strictly illegal, but still dicey. So it is not against federal law to possess a handgun FRT. Again, it is not against the law. However, it is still risky to have one, and I would not recommend it. Number 2, any FRT that modifies a semi-automatic disconnector, or any FRT that replaces a semi-automatic disconnector with a fully automatic or modified fully automatic disconnector. I've seen this with a couple of different FRTs, specifically the Arizona Regulator Gen 3 FRT and the 3-position AK FRT. Those two ones do use some sort of modified disconnector. I am not willing to take that risk. Me personally, I would not take that risk. The Arizona Regulator FRT drop-in is perfectly fine. But the reason why the 3 positions, what I would consider a bit more dicey, is because it uses a modified M16 disconnector, or fully automatic disconnector. It modifies it, or modifies a semi-automatic disconnector. I don't know really for sure. I did take a look at photos, and it does, the tail looks a little bit extended on that disconnector. So it's a modified M16 style disconnector. And it uses a modified 3-position selector, which normally I don't care about. But the number one thing that I do care about is the disconnector, because there is somebody in the community, I'm not going to name who it is, but they contacted ATF, the Dallas ATF, and asked about super safeties. And they asked if super safeties are legal or not. And the agent got back to them and said, yes, it is our opinion that super safeties are legal because they do not modify or engage with the semi-automatic disconnector. And I'm abbreviating, right? But that's basically what they said, and that's why they said it was okay. It's because it didn't modify with that disconnector, and it fell within those 5 other criteria, and those were okay. And right about when they were about to get an official letterhead stating that, they never heard from that agent again, and they basically got stonewalled, right? My guess it was a litigation issue, or because of the lawsuit, they weren't really allowed to talk about it. But that's why I'm a little bit dicey. And in their arguments, in ATF's arguments, while this case was being litigated, there's another case being litigated in the District of New York where they were making the argument that because the rare breed FRT had no disconnector or a mil spec M16 disconnector, sorry, not mil spec, excuse me, fully automatic disconnector or some sort. It had something to do with the disconnector. That was the reason why the ATF targeted it, not because, again, if it would have had a semi-automatic disconnector, it would have been fine. But the fact that it was using a modified disconnector or a modification of some sort or no disconnector, that was a problem with the ATF. So that's why, and also anything that has to do with cutting your lower or cutting your receiver, I generally take it to be too far. There are some AK FRTs that require you to cut into your rails or cut into the side of your receiver. Generally, I would try to avoid those. There are true drop-in FRTs for AKs, and those I can more easily recommend, though the AK side I don't really know very much. The AR side, if you have a high shelf lower, the super safeties and stuff like that won't work, and most FRTs won't work. My general recommendation is just to buy another lower that has a low shelf cut or open cut, an M16 cut lower that just doesn't have the third hole drilled in. Those are still perfectly legal to own, and you can do whatever you want with that. Just don't cut into your receiver. There's some old Colts that have these blocks in there that people have been milling out. They've been milling out their high shelf receivers to be able to put super safeties in. Again, do I think strictly that that's illegal? No, there's no evidence to suggest that that is in and of itself illegal, but it's still a risk that I wouldn't be wanting to take. Just buy something from an FFL, or just buy like a PSA or something with a low shelf or a full uncut or a full shelf, basically something that's full open shelf. I'm trying to avoid using words that YouTube doesn't like. I've already used them, but I don't want to repeat them too many times. But just try to avoid that and just basically start fresh. All right, and then the last one, this one is obviously illegal. What is clearly a Diaz is renamed to an FRT, stuff like that. I've seen this a couple of different times on a couple of different websites where I'm pretty sure there were like honeypot websites. I saw some social media stuff that basically said, here, buy this Glock force reset trigger, and it was just a Glock switch of some sort, right? And those are obviously illegal to own as an individual, unless if you have a FFL 07 manufacturer's license with a SOT, Special Occupational Taxpayer 02, in which you can make, possess, transfer machine guns, right? You can make your own with those licenses, but you need to be engaged in the business of firearms, and that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day. But yeah, so again, avoid stuff like that, because the penalty for owning an unregistered machine gun is 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. So you really don't want to be messing with that. And that is per item, right? All right. So next up, my thoughts and conclusions. So basically, this is an area where I basically divulge some advice that I have, my thoughts about what you should do, or maybe what you should not do, or whatever, right? And personally, I think that the whole misinformation thing, like there's a lot of people out there saying that there's a lot of misinformation being spread. I'm not going to mention names or anything like that, but go in the description below, look at the sources for yourself, and do your own research. All right, but anyways, let's continue. Don't post videos of you using these items irresponsibly. It makes us all look bad. We've all seen the videos of people mag dumping into the sky, out of their cars, into neighborhoods, out their windows. You get the idea, right? There's a lot of people using these items incredibly irresponsibly, and that's what gets these items banned, or that's what gets these items heavily regulated. So try to avoid that, right? Just use firearms responsibly, go over the 4 basic rules of gun safety, and just have fun with it. Number 2, do your own research. Don't spread misinformation. It does more harm than good. whether it be how something works or the legality surrounding these kinds of items. And like I said, again, go in the description below, look at all the sources that I have, and do your own research. Look beyond that. Look at different forums. Look on whatever, Facebook, Reddit. Just look at what people are saying. And if people are making claims, verify those claims for yourself. And if it's just a trust me, bro, then take it with the grain of salt that that post provides. And of course, number 3, don't be a dick. Some people have a hard time understanding how all these things work, whether it be how it mechanically works or the legality surrounding these items. Just try to be patient when talking to people about this. A lot of people's first gut instinct reaction is that this is illegal, and you can try explaining to them. Just basically say that the federal government settled this issue for now, and move on from there. And also, again, when someone is posting, troubleshooting stuff, right? Like they're saying, "Oh, my bolt carrier group is stuck back," or my gun won't cycle or won't force reset. Of course, you could poke fun at them a little bit, but try to be helpful. If you're just an asshole, then that person's not going to want to engage in the firearms community, and they're just going to want to, it just makes us all kind of look bad. Just, again, try to be nice, try to be helpful, poke a little fun, but don't be a dick. Number 4, don't fearmonger. There's enough of that as it is. Be aware, but not anxious. And that should settle within that area right there, especially in the firearms industry. It's so easy to fearmonger because, you never know what the next administration is going to do. And there is very real concern surrounding this. But at this point, I don't think, even if the ATF suddenly changes leadership and says, this and that, they're not going to arrest everybody. They're not going to throw everybody in prison because they own force reset triggers. The most likely thing is going to happen. There's going to be one of two things that happen, in my opinion. One's more likely than the other. One is there could be some form of an amnesty, whether that be a machine gun amnesty or something like that, where people can register these items. And then, of course, the lawsuit would resume, and then you'd go up to the 5th District Court, full en banc panel and all that, and then potentially up to the Supreme Court after a few years. That could happen, but I highly doubt that. Basically, the whole brace debacle, but repeated with FRTs. That's one way it can happen. Or another thing, they could just deem these devices to be machine gun conversion devices. Or more realistically, they're going to say some of these items are machine gun devices and try to ban those. And then, kind of pick and choose until eventually there's none left. And they'll just say, whenever we run across these, we'll just seize them and give you basically a warning letter. That's what happens a lot of the time. So, again, people aren't going to be going to federal prison over it. They're not targeting individuals for the most part. They're targeting manufacturers. So people who are manufacturing these items may have some worry there, but for the most part, they'll send a cease and desist letter saying, "Hey, shut down all operations," and stuff like that. But in terms of the individual consumer, yes, there is real concern. There have been people there's been ATF rules presented in the past, and there have people been that died over it. There's I think his name is Brian Malinowski. I could be saying that name wrong, but he passed away after ATF raided his home at 6 a.m. When it was still dark out, in a no-knock search warrant over him selling a handful of guns, right? But again, there's still concern on both sides. Again, just pay attention to your environment, pay attention to what's going on. There's a lot of gun tubers and a lot of other YouTubers that are going to try to hype you up and make you angry and push you to do some action. And they drive that fire in you. Then they ask you to like, subscribe, and comment and share the video and talk about it and engage in their content farm. And again, I'm not going to name names on that because I'm being polite, but you're going to see a lot of that. But again, just take that with a grain of salt. Like even during the bump stock ban, most people didn't care. And I don't think there might have been one or two people that got caught with these items and they just ended up having to turn them in. And then again, nothing really super bad happened because of the bump stock ban. So again, just again, be aware but not anxious is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to keep talking in circles, so let's continue. Don't get scammed. There's lots of scams out there surrounding these products. There's a verified vendor list at blank if you want to look for a place to start out. Again, these are verified vendor lists for blank product, super safety product, right? And again, I'm not sharing the website, although most of you know how to use Google. You can figure it out, right? And there, of course, you could look up the other list of items that I showed earlier and try to find those on your own. And of course, last rule, have fun, but be safe, be responsible. Don't be a dipshit, right? It makes us all look bad. And yeah, that's just my overall thoughts on this. And of course, here's all my sources. If you want to look at them yourself, I will have all of these linked in the description below for you to take a look at and for you to make that judgment on your own. And you can decide from there whether or not something is, you can look at this up and you notice that a lot of these have, a couple of these have .govs. I went on ATF's website, went on the justice.gov. There's, of course, Wikipedia, gun rights. The Gun Rights Foundation one is the FRT Settlement Agreement PDF. And then, of course, there's a YouTube video on the bottom from armed attorneys who they talk to another YouTuber and they talk back and forth. And basically they explain, they break down the settlement agreement and what it applies to and what it does not apply to, if you need to have a video to watch outside of this one. And that's it. So overall, final thoughts. Again, just, be careful of misinformation. Be careful of factually untrue things. There are still videos out there that people proclaim to say, hey, this is what this is, even though that's not the case, right? And it happens all the time. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I will I will make new content here soon. Sorry for the lazy content. I purged a bunch of my old content off this channel because I want to do a refocus. I'll probably upload some sort of gaming video next, maybe even do a live stream of some sort. It is 6 p.m. on the 14th of October. I might be able to stream this Friday, Friday, October 17th at around, it'll probably be between, I know, really broad time, right? Somewhere between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, somewhere around there. I'll be live, or I hope I'll be live. So feel free to stop in and tune in, and we could talk about anything when it comes to computers, like PC building stuff, video games, guns, even some politics. I don't really like talking about politics too much because it gets kind of nasty, but we could talk about that stuff. Just feel free to stop on by and say hi, and yeah, we'll have a couple of things to talk about, and I'll be playing some games, and feel free to hang out with me then. As for content in the future, probably do some firearm overviews if I decided to keep my content train focused towards firearms. I'm hoping to do more PC stuff as the market has been going down a little bit lately, and that's another one of my hobbies. I love building gaming computers, as you can see from my Verge video from a couple years ago. I still love doing that, and the passion has kind of burnt out a little bit for me lately, but I'm gonna try to revive that. And what else? I mean, yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching so much. And the last couple videos did pretty well. I got over 100 views on each, so I'm happy with that. And I'm just curious of what this one could potentially get. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, everyone, take care.